I was taken aback when he caught me with my skirt up and my boss behind me. He then decided to say hello to Reddit. My name is Courtney. I'm 28 years old and I'm in a tricky situation. I'm still in shock and struggling to process what's happened. I'm actually married and have been for 5 years, but I'm scared of my husband right now. I don't know what's going on in his head or why he's reacting this way. The thing is, I cheated on my husband with my boss and I was caught. I was shocked he caught me with my skirt up and my boss behind me. But then he just decided to do this. I know you'd probably think he'd yell and chase me out of the house, but he didn't. He's been quite silent. He speaks to me normally and has never mentioned what he saw that day. His silence really scares me. If he was lashing out, it would have been better. Maybe that would have made the whole thing bearable, but he hasn't even spoken about it. The incident is still on his mind, and he still shows up at work. We actually work at the same company, but I am my husband's boss. I got promoted and became his boss just 6 months after our wedding. I had expected him to change and ask me to quit, because that was what happened everywhere, but Ryan had been so encouraging. He even surprised me with a dinner date and told me he was proud of me and didn't mind that I was now his boss. You see, Ryan and I met when we both came for the interview for the job I'd always dreamed of working for that company. I won't mention the name for privacy's sake. I chose my course of study because I wanted to work for one of the biggest companies. When I got the job, it was my biggest dream come true. I chose to defy my parents to study what I wanted, and they weren't pleased, so they refused to pay for my education. I had to work in different part-time roles. I was juggling time jobs and schoolwork, which was pretty hectic, but I was determined to see it through because I had to keep my schedules busy to study. I didn't have time for a boyfriend, or at least I didn't have one at the time. I was just too busy for that. He eventually broke up with me, saying that I clearly had other priorities that weren't him. I wasn't too upset about the breakup because I wasn't really invested in the relationship. So when Ryan and I both applied for the POPOR, we were both selected for the next round of interviews. We quickly became friends and offered to share tips on how to answer the questions we'd be asked. When we both went for the interview, we both got the job. We went to have drinks that evening to celebrate. We started working together, and it was easy to transition into a relationship. Ryan asked me if we could try a relationship, and I agreed, even though I had always liked Ryan from... At the start, I felt more and more excited as we got to know each other better. I was really happy when Ryan asked me to date him. We were together for over a year before he proposed. He just said over dinner that we should start planning our wedding. I was surprised but said yes. It was the weirdest way of proposing, but I knew Ryan well and I could see he was a very shy person. I also saw him shaking his feet during dinner, which was a habit of his when he was nervous. I loved Ryan. I loved Ryan so much and was so happy that we were getting married. One thing I loved most about Ryan was that he was a very strategic planner. He always calculated, so we barely had any losses or extra money to spend because of how well he planned everything. I had always been a spontaneous person, so having Ryan kept me in check. I guess it's true what they say about opposites attracting. I could make a decision right on the spur of the moment, and most times it definitely got me into trouble, but not at work. I was good at my job, and my spontaneity always helped me get the job done. We started planning our wedding and sent out our invites to our colleagues at work. 2 months later, we were married. I never considered myself a career woman because I just loved my job and getting it done was my top priority. I was never one to chase after a promotion or suck up to the bosses so they could consider me for one. But I started to feel really desperate and wish I'd been promoted when Mara arrived on the scene. Mara came in as an intern around the time I was planning my wedding, so I wasn't paying much attention to her. But after my wedding, when everything calmed down, I found out that she'd become everyone's favorite, even the bosses. In just 3 months, she'd got a permanent position. She was literally the eye candy of the office. She was beautiful. I knew it. She used her looks to get people to do what she wanted. All the female workers were clearly intimidated by her, and I wasn't left out. I felt the most intimidated and overshadowed by her. I began to work harder than I ever had before, going the extra mile to get things done. I made sure to take all the credit for my work instead of sharing it with the team. I was spending time with the bosses after work, trying hard to please them so I could get a promotion as fast as possible. As a newlywed couple, you'd expect me to be trying to focus on my marriage, but I just ignored Ryan and focused on getting this promotion. When Ryan tried to talk me out of it and advised me to wait patiently, I got really angry at him. I refused to speak to him for an entire day, even though we lived together. I thought he wasn't as ambitious as I was and that he was trying to put me down. I felt like he didn't want me to get promoted because he wasn't getting a chance at promotion himself. Ryan apologized the next day with flowers and a note that said he loved me and hated when we argued. I forgave him because it was a sweet gesture. He never mentioned anything about my desperate attempts to get a promotion after that argument. I finally got promoted. I was really happy that I'd finally achieved what I wanted, but I was also a bit anxious. Everyone knew that Ryan and I were married since they'd come to our wedding, and the news of my promotion had spread around the office. I knew Ryan had probably heard about it before I even had the chance to tell him, and I started to get worried about how he'd react. What bothered me even more was that our colleagues were whispering about it. I'd overheard two of them talking in the restroom. I overheard some ladies talking in the restroom about how the wife got promoted while the husband hadn't, and how much they teased Ryan because I would definitely be earning more than he did. I was really excited when I first heard the news of my promotion, but that excitement vanished in an instant. When we got home, Ryan asked me to wear a pretty dress, and he took me to dinner. It was really romantic, and during dinner, he expressed how happy he was that I kept pushing until I got what I wanted. He said he was proud of my achievements at that moment. I thought back to all the things I'd done to get that promotion. My smile faltered, but I quickly continued smiling so Ryan wouldn't suspect anything. He didn't, I think. We continued with our lives as husband and wife, and also as colleagues at work. I was happy that Mara was no longer the shiny new toy in the office and that I'd gotten the promotion I wanted. I was really eager to get that promotion, and I'm sure you can understand why, but I want to be clear that my affair with my boss didn't start when I got the promotion. I didn't actually sleep my way to the promotion. I did help them out a bit, but my promotion wasn't the result of sleeping around. I loved Ryan and would never have cheated on him for something so trivial. But I guess being sexually attracted to a person who is a one, I'd seen firsthand how cheating on one's partner could ruin everything a person had worked for their whole life. My Uncle Sam is a case in point. He'd been married to his high school girlfriend, and they were happily married until she cheated on him. My uncle never recovered from that, so you'd think I'd avoid putting myself in the direct line of fire. But no, I guess I was in a bit of a haze at the time. I was sent to another branch of our company to check how they operated and why they were making more sales than we were. The other branch was in another state, so I had to travel there and spend a week learning their ropes. Ryan was sad to see me go, but I had no choice. It was a work order, and I was so tired that I couldn't even check out the work site. I just checked into the bed and breakfast I had booked for the week. The company had paid for my travel expenses to fly, but I decided to take a road trip instead because of my fear of heights. They also gave me money to book a hotel room, but I decided to book an inn because it was cheaper and friendlier. I also got to keep the extra money. It was a win-win for me. It was a bit of a challenge, but I still saw it as a win. The road trip was pretty rough, with a lot of ups and downs. It was exhausting, but I made it to the inn and took it easy for the day. The next day, I was trying to enter the building when a man bumped into me, spilling his hot coffee on me. Luckily, I wasn't wearing anything thin, or I would have been burned. I apologized profusely and offered to pay for my dry cleaning. I was already late, but I had no choice when I got back to the room I rented to change. I was asked to see the boss, who turned out to be the same person who spilled his coffee on me. I apologized for being late, and he said it was no problem since I was the reason for my delay. We started to discuss business, and he offered to take me on a tour to show me how everything worked. I was supposed to work as an assistant. I was the manager for the week, but he wanted me to work as his personal assistant instead. It felt a bit strange, but I knew that working directly with him and learning the business would be really helpful, so I agreed. The next day, I followed him around. Oh, and his name is Alex, so I followed him around all day and learned a lot. I even came up with some new ideas for our own branch. At the end of the day, Alex offered to buy me dinner, but I politely refused. He insisted, saying he wanted to make it up to me for soiling my clothes, and because he noticed I skipped lunch while following him around. I accepted the offer, and we went out for dinner. It was really nice, and Alex made me laugh a lot by the end of the evening. He offered to drive me to my rented room, and I accepted. When we arrived, he seemed unhappy. The place I was staying was a bit of a dump, but Alex didn't say anything about it that day. I forgot to call Ryan to tell him how my day went. When I woke up the next morning, I saw his calls and worried texts. I planned to call him later that day. Well, that day I was told I was to move into a hotel room that had been paid for the rest of the week. When I asked who paid for it, it turned out to be Alex. I wasn't comfortable with that. I'd been used to sorting things out myself for a long time, so I wasn't used to having things done for me, especially since Ryan had influenced me in that regard. When I got to work and went to Alex's office, I asked why he'd made the upgrade. He said he just wanted me to be comfortable, and that the place I'd rented might not have been suitable for that. I had no choice but to accept. I didn't want to get into the habit of turning down gifts, especially from my boss. I didn't want to risk making him angry. That evening, after getting back from work, I packed up my things and went to the hotel room. I was trying to settle in when I heard a knock. I thought it was room service, so I opened the door. It was Alex. He said he just wanted to check up on me and see how I was settling in. I gave him the right answers, and then he asked if I was going to invite him in for a glass of champagne. I made excuses, saying I didn't have any and that I usually get too drunk on champagne, which would definitely affect my work the next day. He reluctantly said goodnight and left. I started feeling uncomfortable with his sudden appearance and showing up, but it continued for the rest of the week. I was glad I had to leave by the end of the week, but I was suddenly called a day before I was meant to leave and told to extend my stay for another week. I knew it was definitely Alex's doing, and I was so upset and shaken that I went to his place that evening to vent my anger when he saw me at his place, which he had taken me to earlier that week when he needed to pick up an important document. He was surprised and then happy invited me in. I don't know how, but all the anger just left me. I was just standing there, looking at him like a fish with a fried brain. I guess he thought I came there because I had some kind of feelings for him, because he drew me closer and started kissing me. As stupid as this might sound, I didn't resist and just gave in. I don't know why I did that, and I really regret it now. I don't even know what happened that night. It was all a bit of a blur. I woke up in his bed, completely naked. He hadn't woken up yet, so I just picked up my clothes and left. I felt really guilty. I just cheated on my husband with my boss. What made me feel even guiltier was that my phone rang. Ryan's picture, which I used as my call background, popped up. Ryan was calling. I felt so guilty that I didn't pick up the call. Luckily, I didn't have to work that day. Alex also called and sent several texts, but I didn't reply to any of them. I just sat in my room thinking about what I'd done. The crazy thing was I kept thinking about the sex we'd had and how amazing it felt. I was stuck between two feelings, my guilt and my lust. That evening, someone knocked on my door. I thought it was probably Alex, but I didn't open it. I ignored it, thinking he'd gone away. 2 minutes later, I heard the key turning in the door. I was shocked to see Alex standing there, holding the master key to my door. He asked me why I'd ignored him all day after we'd had sex the previous day. I didn't say anything. He came over to me, probably intending to hold me, but I jumped into his arms and kissed him. We had sex again that night, and every night until I had to leave to go back to my husband and work. I know. I honestly don't know why I kept having sex with him despite not even loving him or anything. It was just really about the sex throughout the extra week I spent there. I never returned any of Ryan's calls. I felt like I didn't deserve to even call him or answer his calls. His calls made me realize I was acting out of character, and at that point, I was only thinking about one thing: my sexual satisfaction. I never let Alex do anything for me other than have sex. I turned down all his suggestions of going out or buying me gifts. I was only with him for the sex. In my mind, I somehow concluded that it would only be a week. It was a long affair. I thought we had our individual lives to live. I'd go back to Ryan and be his wife again, and Alex would go back to work and probably get another woman to satisfy his sexual urges. But it didn't happen that way. I had never told Alex that I was married. Maybe that's why he felt we were two free adults who could do whatever we wanted. I let him assume that I wasn't married. I knew he thought I was only in a relationship. I just went along with it in my head. I thought our relationship had ended along with my work there, but I never knew I had something else coming for me after I got back. I apologized to Ryan for never returning his calls and told him that work had been very hectic there. Most times when he called, I was either working or resting from the job. Ryan believed me and never mentioned it again. I resumed work. The following week, we were suddenly informed of a change in administration. I was being promoted to assist the incoming administration and keep them updated. I was happy about the promotion, but also surprised by the sudden change in administration. However, because I wasn't the owner of the business, I kept quiet about it. The new administration was supposed to arrive the next day, so we had time to organize the office and put together an MC. Here's a quick update on our new project. When Ryan and I got home, he cooked us dinner and opened the champagne he'd brought from work. We celebrated my new promotion. Ryan was really proud of me, and I felt great about it. I've been promoted twice, while your husband is still in the same position as when you both started. It could make him jealous or cause him to react differently, but Ryan wasn't like that. He was saving up to start his own company, so he was really happy about that, which was one thing I loved about him. The next day, my excitement about starting my new job and welcoming our new boss turned into panic and shock when I saw exactly who the new boss was. It was Alex. I managed to smile and give him the flowers we had prepared for his arrival. I also showed him to his office without revealing what was going on in my mahar. When we were finally alone, Alex reached for me and started kissing me, saying how much he missed me and couldn't do without me. Instead of pushing him away and trying to explain the situation, I let him kiss me. We probably would have had sex that day on his desk if it hadn't been for a gentle tap on the door that stopped us. It was one of the staff bringing in some stacks of documents. When I came to, I asked him to give me some space and told him that I needed to tell him something. I said that he was making me feel uncomfortable and that I wanted to be honest with him. I asked him if he knew that I was in a committed relationship, and he said that he didn't know. I then told him that the committed relationship was actually a marriage and that my husband worked in the same company. Alex's mood changed immediately. I excused myself to give him space to think. I thought it was better that way, even though I felt uneasy. I thought it was better that he knew and that he might choose to leave and never see me again. But then again, I was panicking. What if he got angry that I had deceived him and decided to tell my husband? Alex didn't do any of that. In fact, the next day, when he called me into his office to brief me on a document, I was surprised. I thought maybe he'd never want to see me again, or perhaps he would have taken his leave when I got to his office. He locked the door, dragged me to him, and kissed me, which surprised me. I went along with it, and we ended up having sex that day in his office. Afterwards, Alex asked me to leave. I was so surprised because we had just had sex. Instead of saying he forgave me or something like that, he told me to leave. This pattern continued for another week. The same process, he'd call me, have sex with me, and then throw me out. I thought maybe this was his way of venting his anger, so I kept quiet about it until I couldn't take it anymore. I confronted him and told him I didn't want to have sex with him anymore because people were beginning to suspect and because he was treating me like a sex toy. Alex laughed wickedly and told me he would have sex with me anytime he wanted and that I wouldn't dare refuse him. He said he'd get me fired, make sure I couldn't get another job, and ruin my marriage. I knew I was trapped. I'd implicated myself. I couldn't afford to lose my job, and I couldn't afford to lose Ryan. I loved him too much to lose him, so I kept sleeping with Alex, risking everything to save everything. The crazy thing was that Alex always demanded sex in the office, nowhere else. It was like he knew I was panicking during sex because we could get caught at any moment. A month after Alex arrived, HQ told us to promote everyone on the list. Ryan was on it. I was happy for him, but also scared. Ryan's promotion meant he'd be on the same floor as me and see me going into the boss's office, even though that was part of my job. He might start to suspect something. I tried begging Alex. He didn't listen when I asked him to reduce the frequency of our sexual encounters. It was clear he only wanted me for my body and wanted to use me to punish me for deceiving him. The first week of Ryan's promotion was terrifying because I was always on edge. The only time I felt relaxed was when we had closed for the day and gone home. Ryan noticed and asked why I was so tense at work and why the boss seemed to call me alone all the time. I made silly excuses, saying that Ryan was just a demanding boss. He accepted my excuses and told me that if the boss was bothering me, I could quit and try to get another job, or maybe pursue a hobby somehow. I got really angry in my head. It felt like he was asking me to quit so I could become a housewife. I didn't speak to him that evening and just went to bed without making dinner for either of us. Ryan didn't say anything, and the next morning I only made a cup of coffee instead of 2, and then made 1 piece of toast instead of 2. I also went to work separately instead of riding with Ryan in his car. My anger extended throughout the day, and I still didn't speak to him when he got home, even though he tried to explain himself and apologize. The next day at work, I saw Maria, a coworker who had received a bouquet of flowers and a sorry note. She was happily calling her long-term boyfriend. I had a term boyfriend and was giggling over the phone. I felt bad for treating Ryan badly when he was only saying those things out of genuine concern for me. I decided that when I got home, I would apologize to him and settle everything. That was my thought when I was called up again to the boss's office. Maybe Ryan had noticed how tense I became when I went up. I wouldn't. When I got to Alex's office, he asked me to strip and bend over his desk. I did as he asked. I pulled up my skirt, removed my underwear, and bent over his desk. As Alex came behind me, he started pounding me from behind. The door opened, and I turned to see Ryan looking at me, then at Alex. I was so shocked that I pulled down my skirt, forgetting my underwear. I chased after him, but Ryan ignored me and went back to his desk. By now, everyone had seen me chasing after Ryan and was wondering what had happened, so I had to quickly return to my seat and calm myself down. Ryan waited to take me home, and I was so surprised. Throughout the ride home, he was oddly calm. The only thing he did was, I was tapping the steering wheel as he drove. I was panicking so hard inside. When we got home, he asked me if I wanted to eat pasta for dinner. I was thinking about all sorts of things. I said no, it's been 4 days now, and I'm losing my mind. Ryan hasn't said anything about my affair with Alex, and he hasn't touched me either. I'm so scared. I really don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Why is Ryan acting like this? Why isn't he angry at me? His silence is making me crazy. I'm scared to bring up the matter because I don't know how to say it or how to start apologizing. I still love Ryan, but I'm scared I'm losing him. He's not saying anything, but I know he's upset. What do I do? Please, I need advice. I'm really struggling to find the right words to say to Ryan. I feel like I'm in a bad situation, with a lot of people and circumstances working against me. I'm scared of what he'll think and how he'll react. I can't even think about it without getting upset. It's hard to live like this. I came here looking for advice on how to handle my marriage, but I got some pretty negative responses. I've come to realize there's a lot of hatred out there towards women who cheat. I hate myself for what I did. My husband finally reacted, but he reacted in a rather explosive way, I think. I was stupid for not getting on my knees and apologizing that same day we got home. I just waited to see his reaction, and I didn't get one. Well, until now, Ryan kept going to work for a bank. He ruined things over the course of a whole month. First, he tendered my resignation letter without my knowledge. Then he'd apparently recorded Alex and me having sex. I didn't even know he'd sent it to the company headquarters. Now Alex has been fired. Ryan was promoted and given Alex's former seat. That's not all. He also released the video of me online so no one could trace it to him. Then he got a divorce, leaving me with nothing but the clothes I had on. I got nothing in the settlement. The money I managed to save was what I used to get myself a cheap apartment. Now I can't even go out without being pointed at. I hear things like poor. People were saying things like, oh, she's just Ryan's mistress, or she's just a cheap girl, or she did it to get her position in the company. It's so hard even to live these days, because somehow I don't even care what those people think about me. I deserve it. I know I'm only so pained that Ryan thinks of me that way too. I feel so heartbroken and disgusted with myself for cheating on Ryan like that. I know now that I was looking for unconditional love and support, but I lost him, I lost Ryan, and I lost myself. I can't even pinpoint an exact reason why I did what I did. Everything seems so worthless to me now, even myself. I used to have Ryan supporting me silently in the background and helping me, but now I've reached my lowest point, and I know it's all my fault, which makes it even more painful. Crying myself to sleep seems like a normal process now. My mind keeps replaying that awful day when Ryan caught me with Alex. I feel so stupid for hurting Ryan and wish so badly that I could take back the hurt I caused him. I wish I had. I never met Alex or slept with him. I should have been faithful to my marriage and to Ryan. I know I'll regret this for the rest of my life. I'd give anything to be in Ryan's arms again in our matrimonial bed, snuggled up to him. Some people have good reasons for cheating on their spouses. I've heard some of them. Some people cheat because they feel unloved. Some need attention. Some do it for money. And there are many other reasons. The craziest thing is that I did it for nothing. I didn't lack money, attention, love, or support from my marriage. I had all of those things. Yet I was so stupid to think that I could cheat on Ryan and maybe get away with it. It's so painful. The emptiness in my heart is hurting. I feel empty, and this emptiness is painful. I don't know how to describe it. I wish everything were just a bad dream. I wish Ryan would shake me awake and hold me in his arms, soothe me, and tell me it was just a bad dream. But it isn't. It's real. It's my reality now. All of this is updated. Hello, Reddit. This is probably going to be my last post here. I know that a lot of you hate me, and I deserve the hate, so it's fine. But thank you for at least reading my story. I hope that someone, somewhere who is about to make the same mistakes I made will see this and change their ways before it's too late. Thanks and goodbye.